Markets Now is brought to you by Durastak Trait Technology, the latest innovation from Syngenta. Available for the 2027 season, Durastak technology features 3 powerful modes of action to outsmart, outmaneuver, and outmatch corn rootworms every move.
Welcome to Markets Now. I'm Michelle Rook with agmarket.net's Matt Bennett here from Commodity Classic 2026. Well, it was a lower day in the livestock for the most part, grains any mixed. And Matt, I want to start off talking about soybeans because, wow, we made some new highs for the move. And then we kind of crashed. So let's talk about, was this end of the month profit taking or concerns about China?
I think concerns about China more so than end of the month profit taking. As we've kind of pushed up on some of those old highs, it definitely felt like, hey, do we have enough oomph to get up and over them? We had enough oomph to make a new high. We just didn't see any buying on the other side of it. A lot of it has to do with talks for President Trump and Xi. It's all set in motion right now. We know when they're going to meet, but there's a lot of different talk from China that says this is not going well. We don't know exactly what's going to happen here. And I think that shook the market up because everyone's expecting some sort of formal agreement. Everyone was worried about the tariff deal last week with the Supreme Court. President Trump tried to reassure everyone, I've got a plan. We're still going to be able to put this into place. But let's be real about it. If there's not a plan and tariffs are not something that he can offer, I'll tell you what, Brazil's beans are $1 cheaper. We all know that, and it's going to be tough to expect that they're going to buy a whole lot of beans in that case.
You got to feel like with the Supreme Court ruling that we've lost some leverage here, especially to get this 8 million metric tons that we need old crop, right?
Absolutely, and I think whenever he came out with the 8 million metric ton, Michelle, he said that China might buy 8 million more. And so what we've tried to tell guys and gals is that, you know what? If you're going to get a big pop in the market like that based upon hey, we might do this, we might do that, respect that. Because obviously there's no guarantees there. This whole thing so far has been a handshake agreement. Yes, they bought beans. It's been great to see. But the additional 8 million metric tons, that's a lot to ask for, again, whenever we're $1 higher.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we would get an agreement, let's just do the best case scenario. How far could you take prices if we got the 8 million and President Trump and Xi decide to do the 25 for the next 3 years and we get it in paper?
Yeah, so if we get it in paper, okay, what's going to happen is you're going to have a razor-thin U.S. balance sheet. It's not going to change one thing about the world balance sheet. Nothing. You've got a massive resilient crop. Would it rally the markets? Most likely. It's going to give them something to buy. But at the same time, what's the long-term viability there, that sort of a rally effort? And in my opinion, I don't think that it's that great. And so we have to be very cautious as to get too bulled up on a really strong move higher. If we want to totally ignore world fundamentals, we can do so. But that's never really worked out for me in the past.
The other part of the demand push right now has been hopes on biofuels policies. So we finally got the RVO to move to OMB.
Right.
So that's kind of what's been pushing bean oil into contract highs?
Yeah, that's definitely what's been pushing, and it looks like there's going to be a big, strong demand, of course, for oils here in the U.S. to be used in the making of renewable diesel. If that's the case, I like the long-term aspects of that. You look at crush the last several months, every single month, we're crushing more beans. Crush margins right now in Central Illinois, we're running $1.30 a bushel. That's incredible margin. You know that you're going to continue to see crush stay very, very strong. But that's exactly why oil is higher, is because renewable diesel definitely looks like it's something that's going to be a focus here.
Yeah. Exports were a little dismal on beans this morning, too. Was that a little bit of the weakness or not?
Well, we're just too expensive out there on the market. And I do think that made it interesting to see new highs made. But then whenever you make new highs and you say, oh gosh, exports still stink, we're still very expensive on the world market, it's going to be tough to maintain that kind of momentum, if you will.
Is this a buy the rumor, sell the fact reaction like we got in November?
It definitely feels like that's a possibility. Once again, what I keep telling people is let's not try to outguess this market. You just were handed a massive gift over the last 3 weeks with this bean market. If you've got old crop beans around, I'm getting down to gambling bushels. You can do with it what you want, but that's what I would do. And as far as new crop goes, back up here at 11 1/4 here, there's been some $11 cash bids floating around the Midwest for fall delivery. And a lot of people can make that work. Not everyone. A lot of people can make it work. And of course, you're going to see some people reward that.
Overnight, when beans made new highs for the move, corn actually went back to that old trading range that we had before we had the big, massive, bearish January report. Do you think we can stay up at that level or not?
It's a tough call. Whenever I look at corn, old crop, we've got so much corn to chew through, okay? I don't want to be negative here. I'm just trying to be realistic, okay? I can have some hope on the corn complex as a whole based upon the fact you've got record world demand, record U.S. demand. And I mean, our demand here in the U.S., if the USDA is correct, and I know that's a big if, but I feel like they are in the ballpark. 16.47 billion bushels, Michelle, we've never raised a crop other than last fall that large. And so what could possibly go wrong? You know, you've got all this demand built up. And so I think some of these folks have said, I don't want to be short corn going into a potential weather issue. Maybe you do plant 96 million acres, but one thing you got to consider is, hey, what if we have a big prevent plant year this year? If you do, that's not something you can afford as tight as what this balance sheet could get with an off yield. So the corn complex, in my opinion, are two different things. You got cash corn, you got D's corn. D's corn, in my opinion, is going to stay relatively supported until we secure some acres. But as far as cash corn is concerned, cash corn is going to struggle. I think basis is going to work against you on any sort of rally move higher. Let's say we get a big time rally this summer due to weather. Will we see bull spreading? Most likely. That's how the market usually reacts on a demand or any sort of a rally like that. I just don't think that cash corn rallies enough to keep pace with December futures. Why? Because I think you're going to lose basis.
Well, interestingly enough, though, a lot of piles still out in the country, obviously, but we did not get the sell-off into first notice day like we did the last 2 years. Why?
Yeah, I mean, that's a wonderful question. Going into first notice day, you would think that a lot of these folks were going to be puking corn.
Right.
Most likely, you've seen some rolling go on. We have seen commercials step in and buy a fair amount of corn here these last 2 weeks, and I think it was some of those folks that said, hey, I don't want to roll, but I think those that were waiting till the last minute probably ended up rolling. To be honest, it's surprising that we haven't seen that, especially at the end of the month. Usually we see a sell-off there, and then on the backside of that, a little bit of a pop. We had a little bit of a pop here to close the week, to close the month. That was an interesting, who knows, maybe you come in here in March, you get a little bit of money, you start flowing into the ags. I still think inflation adjusted, they look cheap. We just have to give them a reason to own them.
So the corn market obviously has had this record export demand holding it together, but is the market at all starting to look forward at the slow safrinha planting in Brazil or not?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's slow enough. I think that they're looking at it. I think they're also looking at, it's still, I mean, Argentina has been warm and dry for quite some time. They continue to try to bring rain into that forecast. It just hasn't verified on big enough volumes for people. Could you see a bit of a reduction there? And I say, you know what, it doesn't have to be a huge reduction. Why? Because you know what, the USDA said that Argentina was going to be like 52 or 53 million metric ton crop. Brazil was going to be bordering the record. And we know the U.S. crop was a record this last fall, yet we're drawing down world stocks. What if you take 5 or 10 million tons out of that Argentine crop? If you do, Michelle, that is what I would call a very friendly development because we're chewing into world stocks with record world production.
Plus, we're going to plant less acres, supposedly, this next year, but how many?
That's a tough call. I mean, there's so many different thoughts out there. A couple things that come to mind. We planted less beans in almost every state last year. That would tell you your corn to beans, beans to corn guys are probably going to plant more beans this next year. Now, let's be real about it, though. Whenever it comes to crop insurance, you can protect more revenue for less money invested this year. That's going to play a role. We know the U.S. farmer loves to plant corn. And so whenever I look at this, I got to look back at years where you have an anomaly on acreage. And there's been 3 or 4 years in the last 15. Every year that you have that outlier number on acreage, you come down 3 to 5 million the next year. Will we see that kind of a drop this year? I've got to think we back off on corn acres, but is it going to be 94 like Outlook Forum suggested? I don't believe so. In fact, I think if you had a 94 million planted acreage number in March 31st, that would be viewed as very friendly.
The wheat market has been consolidating after that big pop, and the charts looked really good, but we couldn't sustain it. So where does this market go from here?
Last week was wonderful to see. I mean,
was it all weather premium or just short covering?
I think there was a fair amount of weather premium, I think it was a combination. All right, but you got March finally, it went above that 550 level. We've been struggling with that forever. And then you come in and we saw some buying on the other side of that. What's happened this week, in my opinion, the forecast looks much more favorable for rainfall in wheat country. I've got to think that that's playing somewhat of a role because I think there was some fear that crop could really struggle. And bottom line is it looks like they're going to get the rain they need.
Cattle market sitting back here, was this some end of the month profit taking, or, I mean, we're hearing maybe a strike at the JBS plant in Greeley.
I'm sure there was some end of the month profit taking, but the JBS strike, in my opinion, is a much bigger story. I think that you could have issues, especially if you come in here tomorrow and it's actually a deal. I could see a lower move in cattle potentially. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there would be a little bit of fear after you've taken the market and resuscitated it, you know, from the lows after what happened this last fall. We've been trying to urge these cattle producers, hey, if you've got a bunch of risk here on cattle, on fats you were $10 or less off of the highs after dropping 50. I mean, that's notable. You look at feeders, they were almost $10 off the highs. They weren't quite that close, but same thing exists. We got to protect these cattle because you're always one tweet or one sort of a issue like the strike away, a black swan event, from seeing something massive happen and take your prices significantly lower.
We've also been pulled back up higher by the cash market, which we're getting some early indications of maybe a little lower cash this week.
Well, I just think there's a little bit of fear factor there, especially with some of the whispers. I mean, the story hit today, but there'd been some talk that this could potentially happen for a few days. I've got to think that that's put some fear in people's minds that, hey, maybe we don't want to pay up for these cattle right now.
Yeah, and you couldn't take out the February highs either, technically, right?
Right, yeah, and that's a tough thing to do. I mean, there's no doubt that being able to go out there and take those highs out, you've got to have people that have enough confidence that, hey, I want to go ahead and be long and push up new highs. After what we've seen happen in the last several months, we know the administration is very focused on food inflation. We know that they want to see beef prices kind of scale back a little bit, and there's been several different tactics they've tried to go down, and so you've got to be cognizant of that if you want to be long in this market. What could happen if they try a different tactic?
Yeah, and the funds have pushed this too, so you got to have that to help lean in.
Yeah, right? The funds got to go whole hog in if you're going to make new highs.
Yeah, for sure. All right, good to see you.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much. That is Matt Bennett with agmarket.net here at Commodity Classic. I'm Michelle Rook for Markets Now.
With corn rootworm costing farmers up to $1 billion a year, you need the right strategy. Introducing Durastak trait technology, featuring 3 powerful modes of action to strike corn rootworm at full force. Outsmart, outmaneuver, and outmatch their every move with the industry's first triple BT protein stack built for corn rootworm control. Take back your yield potential. Make your move at Durastak.com. Available for the 2027 season.